We got two states holding their primaries today, but the big news are the polls that are just out here. Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton neck and neck in key states. So the question is why that could be a big pain in the neck for establishment Republicans. Then the Donald now looking to raise money, but that's after he said he didn't need a penny from anybody. So why the flip-flop? We'll discuss. Also, the Port Authority's got a new flight plan for the New York area airports that it operates. It's threatening to replace the TSA with private security screeners. Will that make things safer or worse? Good evening, everybody, and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. The polls, they're open in West Virginia and Nebraska as we speak, but it is the polls of the swing states that is getting all the attention today. Hillary, she's trying to shake off Bernie Sanders, as you know, but she's also looking at some numbers showing that Trump could be a lot tougher to shake than we originally thought. Almost exactly 8 years ago, Hillary Clinton beat Barack Obama by a 2-to-1 margin in West Virginia. But today, the dynamics are dramatically different. Clinton's campaign bracing for a loss, and Bernie Sanders could win big. These comments about the coal industry in March certainly not helping the Democratic frontrunner.
We're going to put a lot of coal miners and coal companies out of business.
But despite Sanders' spring surge, the showdown between Clinton and Donald Trump is already well underway.
I'm running my campaign. I'm not running against him. He's doing a fine job of doing that himself.
Hillary Clinton's husband abused women more than any man that we know of in the history of politics, right?
New polls out today from the three key battleground states show a tight race between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Clinton on top just barely in Florida and Pennsylvania by just a point, while the Republican is up by 4 points in Ohio. And how about this? Sanders polls better against Trump than Clinton in all three states. So, is Clinton limping into the Democratic finish line? Her campaign stopped spending money on TV ads in primary states after her wins in Pennsylvania 2 weeks ago. But now they are back up on the air in Kentucky, and she'll stump in Lexington and Louisville today. Now, the polls that I mentioned are close between Trump and Hillary, and the question is, does this validate Trump's approach? All with an interesting meeting with the national Republicans coming this Thursday. Let's bring in our panel. Former Democratic New Jersey Congressman Steve Rothman joins us. Dominic Carter, of course, political journalist and author. Republican strategist Bill O'Reilly made some headlines himself recently. And Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent. Okay, Congressman, I start with you. Let's forget about the primaries today. Though Hillary's expected to lose, and if you go play out the narrative, you could go all the way to California and she could be on a losing streak going to the convention. She'll win, but a weakened candidate. Now you get poll numbers that show three key swing states that are toss-ups right now. She even trailing in one of them. How worried should she and Democrats be here that she's on the wrong side of momentum against the guy that is obviously the dominant narrative for this entire election season?
Well, Richard, I agree with you that the poll results from this one poll are surprising and a little shocking for Democrats that it would be so close. Having said that, the conventions aren't even for 2 months. General election isn't even for 5 months. And there's some problems that the Trump folks are going to have to deal with in their own party. Namely, the conservative element of their party is pretty unhappy. You have Pulitzer Prize winning Wall Street Journal columnist Bret Stephens saying in the paper today, vote for Hillary to save the conservative movement and to save the Republican Party. And you got Paul Ryan and you got Ted Cruz and other conservatives saying they're not going to support Trump yet. So Trump has some work to unify his party. Hillary, on the other hand, has some trouble with getting the votes of white men. Most folks believe she's the most qualified to deal with a dangerous world and to have her finger on the button rather than a nuclear button rather than Donald Trump. But there's a lot more that has to happen, and it's still a very close race.
Before Dominic tells me I told you so, my question to you is, on the Republican side, Trump's got a meeting on Thursday with, among others, Paul Ryan. Everybody knows the backstory right now. Ryan said he wasn't ready to endorse him, and Trump says, who needs you? And by the way, I may not even want you to be banging in the gavel at the convention in Cleveland coming up. Now what happens? Who's got hand, as they say, when the meeting comes around for Thursday? We'll get to the money part next segment. But do Republicans say they look at these polls and say, geez, we may have to hold our nose and get behind this guy? Or do they still believe he needs us more than we need him?
I think they both have hand. I mean, based on those polls, Hillary's numbers shouldn't be that low. And those numbers should be frightening not just to Democrats, but to Republicans who are not Trump voters, conservatives especially. Her numbers shouldn't be that bad. He's got more room for growth than she does. She's been around a long, long time. We're not going to, people aren't going to find out a lot more about Hillary Clinton. Trump can still pivot and get away with it to some extent with some voters. So that's a really worrisome poll if you don't want Donald Trump as president. I think they both have hand. I think, Paul Ryan has right now a lot of moral clout. He's got institutional clout. He has funding clout, and Trump needs him for that. But Trump's got the masses. Trump's got not the masses, but the rabble really, and so they both come with armies.
So for folks who don't know, you made some headlines saying, forget that you weren't a Trump guy, that you were going to stand aside of the Republican Party, even though you've been a lifelong Republican in part of what we've seen this cycle. Are guys like you going to have to reconsider? Maybe not you, but other guys who've done the math. I mean, to me, what Senator McCain had to do after what Donald Trump had to say about him and questioning whether he was a real hero because he got captured. This is a guy who got a military deferment because Trump, that is, because of a foot.
Yeah.
And he's questioning a guy that was a POW in Vietnam. And now McCain has to swallow hard and said, one way or the other, this might be the toughest election of my life because of Trump on the ballot in Arizona, what he said about Latinos. But yet, he said, maybe I support Trump. Talk about that difficult choice and dynamic Republicans have to make.
I got to say, it's gut-wrenching for a lot of Republicans. I've talked to Republicans like me that are not Trump people. I'm in the Conservative Party now. But these are really tough choices. John McCain, who had such a legacy, and he's got to be one of the bravest living Americans, this was not his finest moment. This was not his finest moment. And he chose re-election or possible re-election over, I think, doing the right thing here.
And I could make the argument it would be better politics to walk away from Trump, at least in his home state of Arizona, but we shall see. Back to Hillary, Andrew. Do you believe, some people dismiss this as an outlier poll. Most polls before this had her up double digits in all three of the states, Ohio, Florida, in Pennsylvania that we talked about. But the Q poll is pretty good. Do you think this is more of a reflection of reality or not?
No, I actually think this is more of an outlier. It's also a registered voters poll as opposed to a likely voters poll. There's a lot of minutia within the polling. Look, I think on average, when you look at all of the polls that we've seen so far, and keep in mind this will settle down after the primary process ends, after Sanders endorses Clinton, after both parties have their conventions.
Why do you think it settles down? Why doesn't it just ramp up the rhetoric?
Because you'll wind up with Sanders supporters who are coming home to Clinton, who maybe in a poll like this registered their dislike for Hillary at this point by saying they would support Trump in a matchup against Hillary.
Just on that, Andrew, I heard today the head of the Sanders campaign. Now, I'm not saying that they're throwing the towel publicly yet, but they didn't have to go as far as they went today, which is to say, we see a path still to the nomination. We'll win Nebraska tonight. We'll win, and we might even win California.
And yet, even if Sanders wins both of those states tonight, Hillary will be a hair's breadth away from having enough delegates to secure the nomination.
My point is, they're not going quietly in the good night. Are you really convinced that they're going to come around?
Yes. Because no matter what the end game is for Bernie Sanders, there is no way that his mission is enhanced by President Donald Trump. So eventually he'll come around.
Yeah, I think there are working class white voters that are Democrats that are available to Donald Trump, and he's already shifting to them.
Believe it or not, union voters, I think.
He's already
might
shifting
be the
to them,
ones
and it's something you got to watch out for.
Now, I know the guy across you, Andrew, is going to be saying, I've been saying it all along. Why do we think, though,
really?
Why do we think, though, that Bill's right in that there's more room to grow Trump's numbers than Hillary's? And I say that because later on in the show, I have a conversation with 5 biographers, some of which you know, that have done the bios on Trump, that know all the dirt that's going to come out, that a lot of the low information voters who just know a little bit of but hadn't followed it, the stories they're going to hear about Trump, the businessman, the man, and everything else in between. I think there's more room, not that she's going to convince people how great she is, they either hate her or like her already, but are people going to say, wait a minute, I didn't know he was that bad a guy. I think there's more room for him to lose than her between here and there because they all know about her already.
No, I don't agree with that, Richard. I agree with Bill's point that there's plenty of room for him to grow because the train has just left the station. He's just getting underway, and let's keep in mind this is a guy that's willing to say and do anything. So
But
perhaps
you make that sound like a good thing for him in that
it is a good thing.
in a primary, but in a general election.
No, it's a good thing for him now. You don't see how rattled Hillary Clinton is? I receive emails every day of what Bill Clinton is doing on the stump. The emails are gone now for the last 3 days. You think that's by coincidence?
No, but I also think what you're leaving out is Barack Obama, Joe Biden today said that she's going to be the party's nominee.
Richard,
Democrats
do
are
you
going to
really
get behind.
Do you really think people of color are going to be energized over Hillary Clinton?
I think that they're going to do what they have to do, including this current
That's
president,
possible. That's
to
possible.
go out there and try and rally the base. Why shouldn't Democrats be pretty nervous right now?
Well, I think they're reasonably nervous, but as Andrew was saying, the Bernie Sanders crowd, the majority of them are going to come over to Hillary. Plus, I agree with you that everybody knows everything about the Clintons already. Everything that's could be said about them has been said.
And word is they don't believe there'll be indictments or the email service stuff that came out today. I know you don't like to hear that, Bill, but that's the word.
Whereas all of the money that's going to be spent to demonstrate Donald Trump's, in my opinion, inability to be president, lack of qualifications to be president. I mean, he just said the other day he knows a lot about Russia because he held a Miss Universe pageant there 2 or 3 years
Hey,
ago.
whatever gets you through the night. Okay, now here's the question about the Donald. If he's so rich, and he tells us every day he is, why does he need other people's money? And he put a number on it too, $1.5 billion. Trump is looking to raise cash, but the question is, what kind of questions does that raise? Stay with us.